siblings they had, and she started to build a map. At first, I thought, what a waste of time. What are we doing here? But later on, she said something to me, which was, as the middle child, and depending on the age difference between your youngest sibling and your oldest sibling, it starts to shape who you are. So she told me I have classic caretaker tendencies because the oldest inherits the throne, the most important, the one who has to make it for the family. The youngest gets away with like just being the youngest, so all bets off. And if you're a middle child or you have younger siblings, you'll notice that once stern parent, usually the father in my case, how come you're slacking off with my brother? Why is he getting away with murder? Why is it okay for him to get C's in school and for me to get a B? Hell's gonna break loose. I didn't get it. But I think psychologically, what happens with your parents is they know this is the last one. There was a decision. We're going to have one more and we're going to love this child. And you know what? The burden, the responsibility, that's for the oldest. So what happens is the middle child disappears in this whole thing. And the way the middle child matters to stand out is to start to find ways to work with people. So we develop different social skills. When I argued with Joan, I would say, Joan, I'm not the caretaker. In my family, everyone takes care of me, including my parents. My mom's always like, you have enough to eat. Let me pack you stuff. Let me make sure you got stuff during the week. When I come home, I'm like the king of the house, right? My wife's like, dinner's ready. What do you need? She takes care of everything. She runs the household, takes care of the kids. And so I'm like, no, I'm the king. And she went back into time and she asked me a couple of questions. She's like, who helped your mom out with laundry? I'm like, I did. And who mowed the lawn? I did. And she kept going down this list. I'm like, oh my God, she's right. So I inherit these behaviors and I carry them unconsciously with me into adulthood. And so when I'm running my company, when I have employees that don't work out, I start to think about their feelings more than my feelings. And some of my employees took advantage of this. The people that were in the management positions, they knew if they exerted themselves, even though it was against my will, that I would probably let them have it and they got what they wanted. And what happened with me is I would acquiesce thinking, I'm going to keep the peace and I'm going to just I'm going to just move on. But what happened was I was building up resentment inside my body. And this is where now many years later, this line rings really true from Brene Brown, right? Which is to choose discomfort over resentment. In the moment. What's that?
That I need to add this. That line I literally have, for anybody that's a fan of Harry Potter, I literally have that in my journal written like on every line across 2 pages as if I was in detention. Choose discomfort over resentment, because I know it's a weakness of mine that I'm continuously trying to build. So when you said that, I was like, I know the line he's going to say.
Yeah, so and me both.
Yeah.
Choose discomfort over resentment. And what that really means is in that moment, we have differing opinions. My executive producer wanted to take an ad out or go on a sales trip that I thought was a total waste of time. And it's proven in the past it was a waste of time. But yet, this executive producer would say, I'm going on a sales trip. In under their breath or implied is, I know you don't want to, but I'm doing it anyways. And what I would do is like, okay. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then that resentment would build up. So unfortunately for that person or these people, I would eventually reach a tipping point and then I'm like, that's it. I'm done with this. And they would be like, what happened? Like, why am I getting fired? Well, we're past that point now. So what I'm going to say to you, this is a very long way of saying that our history, our culture, how we were socialized, our birth order, all these things impact us, especially if you self-identify as a creative person. I mean, just think about the nature of what it is that we do. We make a creative thing. We pour our soul out. We connect all these things about who we are, our own self-worth, and then we lay it on the table for some other person who writes a check to decide if it's good or not. So we're living and dying in many ways for their approval. If a client's happy, if the clients are like, Mo, you're the most amazing, talented person I've ever worked with, you shoot up into cloud 9. Same piece of work is presented to a different client. They're like, this is terrible. I'm really disappointed. This is meh. This is really not anything that I was just expecting more from you. That would take you to the depths of the sea. So you can see that creative people are more likely to be harmed by other people's opinions for this very reason. It's kind of in the nature of what we do. You know, let's contrast this with a lawyer or a doctor. A doctor has an opinion about your body and how to make you better. They don't really care about your opinion at this point. Their main thing is to use their knowledge and experience and their training to help you get better. They know they've done a good job when you get better, not because you feel like it. Same thing with an attorney. An attorney's job is to help you win a lawsuit or defend from a lawsuit. And they either win or they lose. They minimize damages or get maximum damages depending on what side of the lawsuit you're on. They don't really care necessarily about what your opinion is about the strategy. But so much of what we do, and if I have anything to do about it, we'll change. But so much of what we do is totally subjective. There's not a hard and fast way to say, like, you know what? We said it was going to be red and that's blue. So clearly this is not red. So we're off the mark here. It's more like, I don't like it. I don't think it's working. I don't think it's clean or simple or modern enough. I think it needs to be more complicated. It needs to be bigger or smaller or more red or more blue. And what do? We have to listen to that. So just understand that there's a lot of stuff that you're bringing into this question, including your client relationship, how you make a living. And now we have that context. Let's take a look at our own employee staff management problem. So getting back to your question, Mo, you want to know how to fire someone. You say better. So well, I'm going to assume there's a worse, because if there's a better, there's a worse, right?
Well, maybe with the context that you've given, because I second everything that you said. And I think the core of the question is maybe not even related to the technique of firing, because I don't necessarily know if there's a different way to do it, except being very clear on something as far as expectations and then communicating that clearly. I think the core of my question now, with all the context you've given, is there's a part of me knowing that caregiver, that wanting to create an environment with people that I'm liked and they're taken care of. There's a part of me that just wants to be savage too, because I know that in the past this has been to my detriment. And I'm using that word specifically because I know you're going to pick it apart, and I can't seem to see the gray. Like, I want to be the servant leader, the one that's caring. I don't want to lose that part of me that I very much love, the part of me that feeds me energy, building relationships. But at the same time, and me and you have talked about this on the phone, where you've said, Mo, even on a sales call, I want you to be like, hey, creative Mo sometimes gets me in trouble. I'm going to put business Mo on the phone really quickly. I want to be able to find that gray, whether it's actually with firing or any other element in my business, of how to be that empathetic savage. Is that a good two-word descriptor for a personal brand?
I do like those 2 words, but I don't see you as that at all.
Okay.
So some people do pick 2-word brands that sound really good on paper, but I look at the person like, there's something that's not on.
Oh, because I'm not a savage.
You're not a savage at all.
No.
You're far from it. That's the problem. No. You know, you're an empathetic caretaker.
Oh, there's no juxtaposition there.
There isn't. But let's just get into this, okay? I'm going to dissect words because that's what I like to do. But don't try to play the chess game with me. Just go along with the flow, because otherwise we're going to just chase each other around like 2 dogs chasing each other's tails, all right? First is, like, you need to fire someone. You've identified, for whatever reason, this is not a good fit for you. And I say that if you're going to start a business, you're going to have to learn how to at least get comfortable with firing. You don't have to love it, but it can't cause you all this pain and consternation. It just can't. If you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to be more than one person. And I think one of my biggest stumbling blocks when I was first starting out in business was I hated the concept of firing so much that I didn't hire anyone. And I was trying to do all the work myself or with my girlfriend and then my wife. And it nearly killed me. It nearly killed me until the day that I learned how to fire people and to still be able to sleep at night. And it's one of these things where your first kill, so to speak, is really, really difficult. You're going to lose sleep days and weeks leading into it. And then afterwards, you're going to lose days or possibly weeks of sleep afterwards. It does take an emotional toll, especially if you're an empathetic person that is concerned about other people's welfare. But let's go through this, okay? For some reason, And you get to determine what these reasons are. And the clearer you are about the reasons why someone's not a good fit, the easier it is for you to make this decision. Now, generally speaking, we should have clear and open communication with whoever works for us, whether they're a freelancer or they're a full-time person, whether they've been with us for 1 week or 10 years, they should know what is expected of them in the role that they're hired for. And these things can and do change over time. So it's important for you to communicate the changing needs. Okay, so hypothetically speaking, or you can draw from actual experience here, what were some of the reasons why this person was no longer fit for the role that you hired them for?
Speed.
Okay.
Speed of output. There was clearly a gap in experience versus what I expected of this person, which required more of me in the weeds with them, which was not the goal. The goal was to get me out of primarily the weeds. So those were the two ones. Yeah.
All right. So what we want to do is, if we can set up the parameters for success, if we can define what the goal looks like prior to hiring someone, it makes it a lot easier to continually reference that point. So this is the first thing, that if you're thinking about hiring someone, either as a freelancer or as a full-time person, you have to imagine with them in words and then ultimately in writing what the expected outcomes are of the job. And were you clear about this, Mo?
Yes.
Okay. So what were the outcomes?
Really? That's what we're going to do?
We have to.
I want to keep the innocent. So how do I say this with dignity?
You can just tell me what it is that you're supposed to produce. 2 videos, 4 social media posts, whatever it is.
Yeah, a certain amount of videos per week. Specific number.
Why don't, is revealing that number going to hurt a person?
To be honest, I'm concerned this person might be listening.
It's okay.
Because we're getting super specific.
Okay. All right. So why don't you just make up a number then?
2 videos a week.
Okay. 2 videos per week. All right. So when you went to hire this person, or talking about contracting with them, you said, so here's my expectation. I need you to do 2 videos for me a week, right? And based on the experience of who I've worked with in the past, they've been able to do this no problem. If you put in 40 hours a week, this should not be a problem. Now, obviously, there's some qualitative things about these 2 videos, because that's quantitative, right? They can deliver to you 2 crappy videos where there's jump cuts and there's weird glitch frames, the audio levels aren't balanced, the color corrections all over the place. So you would go and enumerate all those things. And
it was definitely the latter on that one, what you just described.
Mm-hmm. You probably should show them, here's an example of what I'm expecting. Mm-hmm. And then you would open it up for dialogue to say, does any of this concern you? Mm. Okay, so if we were hypothetically having this conversation and you get to play the role of this person who you potentially are going to hire, what might they have said? Or you can just make up whatever.
No, that actually happened. Examples were shown.
And what did they say?
Yeah, no problem.
No problem. Yeah. Okay. Now, I want to pause here. See, so when I put some piece of information out to someone, I'm not just saying it so that they understand what I'm saying, but I'm also saying it to read their reaction to this, right? So when I say something and I've got a lot of parameters around it and they have no questions, like no problem, I already have a problem. That should be your first, I wouldn't call it a red flag, I would call it a yellow flag. So it requires further investigation. Because to me, here's what's happening. The person wants a job. The person is afraid to say anything to you that might jeopardize the job. We understand this. You can look at this in dating. You can look at this in business, or even hiring people. We're very careful, and the smart ones know what to say and what not to say. And we have been trained historically to not ask questions even when we don't know. So when you use a term, like let's say you're like CPA, cost per acquisition, or something like that, right? And they don't know that term, and you're like, you have any questions? Like, nope. I'm already concerned.
Damn, that's good. Yeah, yeah.
And I want you to think about this. The last time you had a client meeting and the client briefed you on all these deliverables and objectives and metrics for success, the history of things that have and have not worked out, and ask you, do you have any questions? You're like, no questions. I want you to think about what you're communicating to them, what you're signaling to your prospective client. You're basically doing what this young person is doing to you, which is, I don't know everything you just said, but I have zero curiosity. And I'm so afraid of asking a question, I will say nothing. This is what you're signaling to them. It works both ways. So when someone has zero questions for you, I would already start to like, oh, my spider sense would start to tingle. The hairs on the back of my neck would stand up a little bit. I'm like, wait a minute. What do you mean? You can do this? No problem. And so this is where you have to realize something that my business coach taught me many years ago. He says that we as entrepreneurs, as business owners, fail to understand the amount of power and leverage we have in the eyes of the people who want to work with us. So what we have to do as a servant leader is to make sure you create space for them to feel comfortable to ask questions. So what I would have done is I would have said, I'm going to show you some things. I'm going to tell you what I'm expecting. And I expect you to ask a couple of questions because I don't want there to be any misunderstanding between us. In fact, if you don't ask me any questions, I might get concerned. So please ask me questions. There's no such thing in this point as a dumb question, because I'd rather have us have a clear and open line of communication so that there's no misunderstanding. I want us to succeed. So I'm going above and beyond my level of communication to make sure the other person feels like they're safe to ask me anything. This is not a trap. It's not a trick. I want you to ask me questions because otherwise I'm going to go away from this conversation kind of worried. You might also follow up that if they have no questions for you, you might say, how long do you think it would take you to cut one video of this quality that we're talking about here? And keep in mind, the raw footage I'm going to give you is an hour long.
Right.
And the audio is not synced. We have multiple audio sources. We have multiple camera sources. Have you done a multi-camera edit before? Do you know how to sync them up? You would ask them questions, so just make sure.
I think hearing you say this, because the experience I'm referring to is probably one of the first hires once we really narrowed in on what we do as a business, as far as like the whole niche and negating any other type of services that we used to do in the past. And the more I hear this, do you think it's just a matter of reps for a person like me? Because when I hear you right now, I can tell that this is somebody who's not only done it themselves, but somebody who's thought very clearly about the expectations they have of the other person. And I remember asking, like, do you have any questions? But I don't think in reflection, I don't think I gave as much ample space for them to really dig in. And now, having gone through a few hiring situations, I realize that us as creatives are pretty advantageous when we say yes to something. And now I'm more seasoned in my radar coming up. But I guess going back to my original question, do you think it's a matter of reps when it comes to getting better at this? Because as I hear this, I'm like, well, the more I hire and the more I get, or is it something else?
No, I don't think it's a matter of reps. So for example, if you are tasked to survive in the wilderness on your own two hands, like if you're a bushcrafter, I forget what it's called, right? And you're going to live on your own. And it's just you out in the desert, in the Arctic, wherever, in the forest, and you've not been trained. It doesn't matter how many days you're out there, you're going to get incrementally better, not exponentially better. Some of this is just, you just need training. Like I could have stumbled through my business for 20 years and thought I did a really good job, then hire a business coach only to learn I built up 20 years of really bad habits.
Fuck.
And so my business coach, Kier, would often say, don't mistake good fortune with a good plan. Just because it's worked out for you in the past doesn't mean you actually know what the heck you're doing. And you'll notice this a lot with professional athletes who go on to become coaches. They're terrible coaches because all of this has come to them as just a gift. They're good basketball players, they're good baseball players, but they don't know what's happening.
Right.
Where it's these kind of like what I would say middle to upper tier athletes who never usually achieve that pinnacle of success, who really had to read and understand the game and study it and have a mind for it, that they wind up becoming great coaches. They didn't win 4 championship rings. They barely even made it to the playoffs. But they're such amazing coaches because they know how to activate other people and help them make those tweaks so they can win the championship. So this is why we need coaching. And this is why we're having this conversation about business fundamentals. Someone here who's going to be listening to this conversation is going to get just a little bit smarter about how to hire people. And then ultimately makes the firing part much easier because you remember how we had that conversation?
Yeah.
Right? Okay,
Yeah.
so quick recap here. It's important as a business owner that you have clear definitions for what the goal looks like, to have what success looks like, to have examples that you can show people, because everything's really abstract until you see something, especially in a creative field. When you then invite them to speak or ask questions, you need to set them up. You need to prime them that you're expecting them to ask questions. Because people are afraid of you. You have more power than you realize. And they think by remaining silent, they're going to do you and themselves a favor when in fact they're sabotaging a relationship. One other thing I can say, which is a little scarier than what I've said to you previously, another tactic that you can use is this. I want this to be really successful. I would hate for you to sit here and nod and pretend like you understand and you can do this and not ask me any questions, only for me to come back in 2 weeks and say, look, what happened? Now I got to let you go. I don't want that to happen, right? I want to set you up for success. And so if there's something that's not clear, I want you to ask me. I want us to have a dialogue about this. And if you don't think you can deliver 2 videos of this quality in a week, let's talk about what we need to do so that you can do that. And it's okay for you to say no to me right now.
If my lead editor was here, he'd be like, Mo, you give a lot of grace, because when I hear that, I've said that line about I want this to be successful and I want to create an environment for you to be successful. There's a part of me that with these experiences, it feels like I'm getting what I'm supposed to hear. And now I'm wiser for it, especially after this conversation. I'm going to be even 10x wiser. It's like, yo, you really telling me what I want to hear right now? How do I ensure that I'm privy to maneuver around that? Because on paper, sometimes people look amazing, and then it's within, the, for lack of a better term, probationary period. You're like, well, the experience is not what I thought it was going to be. And, and listen, I know me and you've talked about this. There's a part that probably is attached to what I can afford, like, to be frank. So, but I want to make sure that I get better in my spidey senses, being attuned to those things, even when I deploy the tactics that you just told me. So am I missing something in those moments? Am I being too nice? Am I being, let's make this relationship work? Like, am I listening with, as you call it, happy ears? What do you think? So I ensure that I don't find myself in a similar situation in the future.
Yeah, let's just admit something right now, okay? There's I think it's a TikTok audio track, and I've seen it on Instagram and elsewhere.
Oh, God.
The track that says something like this: no one will know. No one will know. Okay, just keep imagining that, right? So it's usually somebody hiding something or doing something a little shady, usually, and getting away with it. When we see a portfolio, when we see a logo portfolio, we see a book of like beautiful identity design, or in a case like an editing reel or a cinematography reel. The thing is, no one knows how this was made, how many people participated in this, if they had supervision or this was their idea or wasn't their idea. We don't know if it took a day, 2 hours, or 2 weeks, or 2 years. We just don't know. I've hired enough people in my life in the creative space in the X number of years I've been in the creative service industry that I don't make any assumptions now because I don't know. And here's the funny thing. I'll tell you this side story and then we'll get back to your question, okay? I remember this guy who came into the office. This is me like 7 or 8 years into running my business, so I'm still kind of fairly new at the business part. Show him his portfolio. I'm like, oh, this is really good. And he's all smiling. Everything's great. He's sitting there watching his demo reel with me. I pause. I'm like, oh, what'd you do here? He goes, I didn't do that shot. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Keep playing it. And I pause again. I'm like, this is what you do in this shot. He goes, I didn't do this shot. At this point, the interview is over. So this person padded out his reel with work that he didn't even do.
Damn.
Because as you know, when you're working in cinema, film, motion design, it's a large team effort. And you might work on one graphic in one shot, but
Right.
you're not confident, you're insecure. So you show the shots before and after that one. But those shots are so sexy, no one even cares about that one thing you designed on the back of the wall. No one cares. And so not only did they not get the opportunity, I had to just cross them off my list forever because I'm like, you're misrepresenting, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you see something hot, Mo, when you see like this is a dynamite editing reel, you have to say it. Tell me how long it took. Talk to me about the process that you went through. How much of this is informed by someone other than you? And all answers are fine. Right? You got to get the person to open up and let you know the creative process so you can understand who you're hiring in that moment. What I also realized over the years is sometimes designers take their work home and work on it for hours above and beyond, not because they needed to, but because, well, not because like they just love the company so much. It was because the work wasn't good from 9 to 5. But you have no idea because you know why? No one will know. No one will know. So you have to ask these kinds of questions, Mo. So yeah, I think a little bit is there's a lot more complicated mindset things that are going on, but we'll keep this out of a therapy session. We'll keep this mostly based in business, which is you're thinking, I need a warm body to throw at this thing because I'm neck deep in work right now. So there's a little bit of desperation, like I need someone, right? Number two is if you were at the top of your game, you could afford to hire anyone that you wanted, but you know, I have a finite budget and I'm going to accept a little less than. So you're already building in your own mind an ability to look away from the real problem. So the happy ears got happier, the rose colored glasses got rosier. And so it's hard for you then to see what's directly in front of you. And you and I will continue to explore this theme of not being able to see what's in front of us. Because this is the thing. Most of us have massive blind spots that we can't see into them. That some stranger can walk up and like, oh, is this supposed to be red? You're like, red? How'd you know? Well, everything around you is red, dude. Are you serious? Yeah. It is like that. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll answer your question. First of all, I want to quickly reset this room or this space. It's 36 minutes into this conversation I'm having with my friend Mo. In case you guys don't know me, my name is Chris Do. It looks like Do, but it's Do, Chris Do. And in 1995, I started a motion design company called Blind, and I ran that company for 20 plus years. But in the last 6-7 years, I've been mostly a content creator, creating things on YouTube and elsewhere. And so I've made this transition from being a service provider to someone who teaches a lot of strangers, I think, how to run their business. And I sometimes sprinkle in a couple of design things. And that's me. And now, Mo, introduce yourself, please.
Hey everyone, my name is Mo Ismail. I go by Mo Isma, and I help thought leaders create video content online, particularly across social, to build their brand as well as their audience and revenue for their business. And I'm one of the strangers that Chris has picked up to help in growth of his own service-based business. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, I was driving on this internet education highway, and I drove by this bearded guy's like hitchhiking, and I'm like, "Hey, what's up, man? You need a ride? Where are you going?" And he said, "I want to go to the future. I want to build a business for myself, for my wife, and for my kids. Can you help me?" I'm like, "Get in. Let's go. I'm heading there, so let's go." And so Mo and I know each other.
We had the kids on the road because the kids didn't exist at the time.
Scary. Yeah. And there was a labor in the back seat. But Mo and I know each other for a couple of years now, and we like to make content together. And he's in this place now. 2022 is the year where he's going to break some real numbers. I'm not going to share your numbers, but I can share my numbers if anybody's curious. I like to be as transparent as possible, to be an open book, to share my successes as well as my failures. And if there's something you want to know about this topic, when to hire and fire, we're going to be covering topics like this in a ongoing series here on Twitter Spaces called Business Fundamentals. Okay, let's get back to Mo's question now. He set everything up. What's the next problem, Mo? Ask your question again.
I feel like you've answered it.
Oh,
honestly,
okay.
Yeah. I feel like you've answered. Yeah, no, I feel like we're good. I think we'll delve into the mindset stuff over time. I think I'm shedding that slower than I'd like, but I'm shedding it nonetheless. But I think we've covered everything, and I know we want to keep these right and tight. So I have my action items as far as the pre-planning. before hiring to make sure I'm spot on, and then I need to drop those rose-colored glasses. I think that's the big takeaway, which is the
Yeah.
mindset piece that I need to be sharing. I am listening with happy ears, and then overall, which is a big part of 2022, fucking charge more. You know, now that there's notable clients under the belt, now that we're have skin in the game as far as how many pieces we've produced and systematized the ops. I think those are the biggest two takeaways for me, and I hope that everyone listening also has some key takeaways with where they're at right now in their business.
I'm seeing a couple hundred emojis being popped up here when you sent that. Look at that. Matthew Sickenese. Not Sickenese. Yeah, Matthew Sickenese is throwing up a couple hundreds for you right there. Okay, Mo, we talked about the birth of the problem. We haven't talked about its midlife and its kind of end of its life. So I'm going to quickly cover that. So what we've been talking about is if we learn how to hire better, we have a greater percentage of success, possibly. But that doesn't mean we're free from it, because nothing's perfect and people do change. You could have hired the best person on day one, and through a number of different reasons outside of your and their control, they devolve into a much worse employee. And now you have to like have a conversation. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the midlife, and then we're going to talk about how to fire them once you're at that stage where there's no way that we can reconcile this. We've gone past the point of our ability to get it back on track. Okay. So somewhere along the relationship, it could be a day, it could be days, it could be weeks or months. Something has changed. You've changed, the position has changed, or your employee has changed, but now we're out of alignment. We're no longer seeing eye to eye. Expectations are not being met. And I think at this point, it's time for you to pull this person aside. What I would do is I would schedule a meeting with them to say, I need to chat with you on Tuesday at 2 p.m., whatever the time is. It doesn't really matter. And they're not going to know what's up. It doesn't even matter. You don't even need to set an agenda. You're going to pull them aside, and you need to do this in private for everyone's sake. So pretend this is pre-pandemic and you have an office space. Do not do this in front of other people. It's a difficult conversation. Think about the person and their feelings and how they are going to be able to hold their head high in front of everyone else after you talk to them. So they head on into your office, you close the door, and you're like, have a seat. So here's the problem. I'm going to just use a name. I'm going to make up a name right now. I'm going to just use the name Jeremy, okay? I haven't fired anybody named Jeremy. If your name is Jeremy, I apologize. It's pure coincidence. So you say, Jeremy, here's the thing. When I hired you, we had very clear expectations, and something has caused it to drift apart. Now, I need you to hear me for this next part, and I don't want you to respond until I point at you, and then please respond at that point. Okay, I just want you to listen. If you need to take notes, please take notes. And so then you would go through and you would tell them, all right, so at the beginning you were doing a great job, 2 videos a week, we're hitting all the milestones, we're hitting our stride, everything is great. And now I'm noticing not only are you not doing 2 videos a week, it's dropped to 1.5, and I've noticed a perceptible drop off in quality. The videos are no longer performing. And it feels like there's like a little avoidable mistakes that are just, I don't know how else to describe this, but there's just oversight. And I can't have you working for me and then me having to check in on every little thing. That's not a good use of my time. Now, I want to present a couple of options to you. Tell me what makes sense. Okay. Option number 1, let's get this back on. I don't really need to know the reasons. You can tell me the reasons if you want as to why you've drifted off. Or option number 2, you tell me this is not possible for me to do and you don't want to work here, and I can hear that too. And we'll figure out a way to gently transition you out of the company. What's it going to be, Jeremy? And now please respond. Now, the reason why I do it this way, and I'll explain in a little bit, is because oftentimes when you're talking to somebody like this, they're actually not even listening to you, because all they want to do is what? Well, what do they want to do?
Run.
No.
or defend themselves.
They want to defend themselves.
Yeah.
So actually, you think you're doing a great job of communicating. You've rehearsed this. You made it really clear. Your tone is really nice and even. You're not pointing fingers. You're not chastising them. You're not browbeating them. But they're not listening to you. So what you need to do is let them know. I need to let you know where you stand. And I don't want you to respond until I'm done talking. That way they're not sitting there trying to defend themselves, because that's only going to do what? It's going to aggravate you, and it's going to make the situation much worse. And it's because, you know why? We're the senior person here. We're the entrepreneur. We're supposed to know how to communicate to people. We're not supposed to say all rules out the window, do whatever it is that you want. So we structure the conversation in such a way that they know what to expect. They know when to respond. So at least they're at ease. And you can even say to them, there's a couple of things I need to bring up to you that's going to affect your employment here in the future, but I'm not firing you today. I want to make sure you know where you stand so you have ample time and opportunity to rectify this, because I'd like this to work. Okay, whenever you set it up like this, because I have done it like this, Jeremy's going to say, okay, I acknowledge this is what's going on. I'm not going to let you down again, Mo. And you say, great, I'm glad you could hear me. Now that you've acknowledged that, what can I do to make sure I give you the support that you need? And this is going to be something that will come up, and you have to be open to this. They could say something like, you know what, since working here, you know, my wife, her schedule shift at her work, and she can no longer pick up our son. And I'm always stressed out towards the end of the day because I don't know how I'm going to get there. So I'm not 100% here. Okay, so that's a real challenge. It's a real problem. And you want to be human in this case. And unless it's mission critical that I be here at a very specific time, I mean, you get really creative. You say, okay, look, would this work for you? What if you came in a little earlier? I'll get you a key and the code to the building. I trust you. And you can leave when you need to so you can take care of your kid. Or if need be, maybe we set you up from a work from home situation. And as long as you can get the work done, that way you can be a contributing parent and raising your child so that you don't have to compromise. I think we have to have flexibility here, and we have to be creative. And you know what? If this is truly the problem, oftentimes it's not. I just want to warn all the entrepreneurs out there. If this is truly the problem and you're so flexible and you help this person out at real no cost to you at all, you may have a super loyal and dedicated employee that you could not buy with money. And they're going to go home that day and they're going to say, you know what? I can't believe it. My boss, Mo, I thought he was going to ream me today, but we have a better situation. I'm going to be able to work from home 2 days a week, and I just need to go to the office earlier so I can get home and pick up Junior. And that person's partner, spouse, whatever, is going to say, wow, what a great boss you have. They won't say this, but they might think, what a great servant leader. Okay, Mo, over to you.
I mean, that was textbook. Better than the textbook, because I haven't read a textbook that brought it up like that. I personally, the part of me that is very human driven, appreciates, one, the candor, because that is something that I used to struggle with in the past. And also, there is a part of me that really appreciates owning your position with grace. The fact that you said, hey, I would like to say something. I would rather you listen right now, or I'd like for you to listen and not speak. And what that does is parameter the whole situation, because I think you're 100% right. Now they're no longer fighting their inner defensiveness. They're just tuned in. And then on the tail end, you give them ample time to speak. And I think what's really critical about this, which I would argue is glossed over from other people that I've heard talk about this topic, is the amount of accountability you put yourself in to hear them out. I don't think that's talked about enough. And that makes me feel like that's the way I want to do it forever. Because it's not just, yeah, rah, 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 here's what you need to hear from me. It's also like, once we find a common ground, I'm here to listen to make this better for you as well. And I think that was a big takeaway for me.
Good. I'm going to give you the meta layer, and I will tell you something else, and then we're going to talk about how to fire people, and then I'll open it up for anyone who wants to join us up on stage, okay? The meta layer is this. You have to ascertain within that conversation through verbal and nonverbal cues from this person who's sitting in front of you, whether or not they've mentally checked out or not. Not the easiest thing to do. I need to understand if there's misunderstanding or if there's external forces acting upon this person that is not allowing them to perform, or they've just mentally checked out. This is really critical that you be able to figure this out. This is why I invite people to have dialogue. I want you to listen and I want you to watch them. And a lot of times they don't actually want this job anymore because for whatever reason, they've decided the grass is greener somewhere else and they're just half-assing it at this point. And if you sense that, you need to address that now and not kick this down the field because you're going to have this exact same conversation, except for now, you're going to have a little less grace and you're going to resent them a little bit more. And there's less opportunity for you to fix this anyways. So try your best to say what you need to say, but look at how they respond. Their eyes open up like, oh my God, I didn't realize this was happening. Or, you know what? I'm glad you brought this up. I need to fix this. And sometimes people are just checked out for a number of different reasons. They're not bad people. You're not a bad person. It's just not a good fit anymore. And if you see that, you can see like, you need to say like, I'm not sensing that actually this is a priority for you. And if that's the case, I need you to say that to me right now. Because there's no sense in dragging this out where we're going to strain this relationship and I'm going to have very different feelings about you later on. Let's be professionals about this. So again, if you open up the door and you invite people to step in it, oftentimes they do. Now, I'll just say this. Most professional people, even if they don't want to work for you anymore, even if they know they're going to leave, there's something weird about each and every one of us that says, I'm not a quitter. I'm not giving up. I don't want it to end like this, even though they know it's going to end. So when you open it up, oftentimes they're like, you know what? I'm glad you said that because I found another job, actually. I didn't know how to tell you. You're like, okay, well, great. Congratulations. Why don't we just wrap this thing up? Let's square up with our with accounting, get you paid for unused holiday and sick days, and let's get you on your way. And call me when you're in your new job. We'll go grab we'll grab lunch or grab some coffee or something together. Like, thank God you said that. A lot of times, especially with my boys, I have two boys, an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old, and they've done something wrong. I've hopefully have learned from my own parents who was like, did you do something wrong? I'm like, no, lying through my teeth. Because I know whatever I admit, I'm going to be punished even more. I already know I did something wrong. I'm going to get out of this conversation really quickly. I've learned my lesson, so to speak. But so with my own children, I'm like, sometimes we mess up. I mess up too. And no matter how you mess up, I will not love you any less. And what is life if we don't try things and learn from them? So is there anything you guys want to tell me? So they're more likely to tell me something when they don't fear punishment above and beyond what they know they've already done. I want to leave that open for them. Okay. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to transition on how to fire people, and then we're going to invite people up on stage. So if you're raising your hand and requesting to step up on stage, just give me 2 seconds. Let me get through this part, and we'll bring you up in the order in which you've raised your hand. Okay. Some of you are wondering, like, who is this guy that's talking? You might have seen me on the internet, the dark Twitter, design Twitter, if you will, too. And you'll think like, this guy does not know what he's talking about. And I can hear your criticism. And I encourage you, if you have a differing point of view, even if you want to argue with me, I'm totally okay with that. Because I believe in healthy debate and dialogue. You don't even have to respect me. I don't even ask that you respect me. It's totally okay. I'm opening it up. If you want to step up on stage and you want to have a debate or an argument with me, I'm totally okay with that. All I ask is if you're going to swing and swing hard, you have to also be ready to get a punch back. That's all I'm saying, right? Don't throw stones in a glass house is what they say. And how do I know these things? Is this from some kind of book? Is it like, watch some videos? I'm just parroting what I've heard. Some of it is, admittedly. Most of it is because in the early 2000s, about 5 or 6 years into my business, I hired a business coach. And I worked with this business coach for 13 years while running a multi-million-dollar service design company. And I would mess up on something. I'd go to my coach, help me out. It's like, this is what you need to do, kid. And then I would do that and I would learn. And I would just keep applying those learnings until I got much, much better at it. Never perfect, but much better. That's how I know what I know. So if you have questions about that too, we can have a conversation about that. Mo, let's get into the hard part now. We set up expectations. We have milestones. We tried our best to communicate to this person, and things have not gotten better. This is something I still struggle with, and those of you that have worked with me in the past will probably nod in agreement. I'm slow to fire. I just believe in the inherent goodness and the ability for people to perform and get better. And I just think if I could just coach them a little better, they're going to improve. 90% of times I'm wrong. But there's something about me. You could say it's flawed or broken or whatever. I keep thinking, if I communicate this clearly to them, this is the time that it's going to be different. 1 out of 10 times it's different. 9 out of 10 times, not much has changed. And then I have to ultimately let them go.
So what you're saying is I'm asking the person who doesn't fire how to fire.
Yeah, generally speaking.
Just kidding.
Yeah, generally speaking. So, I have a little, like you, sometimes emotional attachment to people. And I have to be careful because as soon as I become emotionally attached to someone, I'm not thinking clearly right now. Right? I'm not so binary where I'm like, ones and zeros. You're either doing it or you're going to get fired. I don't like to run my company this way. I want to run a humane company. And luckily for me, for the most part, in the 25 plus years I've run a business, there has been enough profit margin, enough fat in the business that we do that there's room for this kind of behavior. Now, if we were running this on a 4 or 5% profit margin, you'd have to fire people almost immediately because you hang on someone for a little bit longer. It means you have no profit. And it also means that this person's bad attitude or poor work ethic will infect your organization and it can corrupt good people. Hence the expression, it takes one bad apple to ruin a bunch. What happens is your good people say, well, if Jeremy's not going to do the work and Jeremy's not getting fired, leaving early, doing half the work that everyone else is doing, what am I doing busting my butt for? This is how you can ruin a good employee. Some might argue it's impossible to ruin a good employee. Well, at least you can ruin the ones in the middle who can get pulled into this dark pool and start acting in ways that are inconsistent with how they used to behave. Okay. So now you're at this point, you need to fire someone. What are you going to do? The conversation is going to be very similar to what the middle check-in is. Okay. Generally speaking, I prefer, if you're going to fire someone, to fire them on a Monday or a Tuesday. So if you get called into my office on a Monday or Tuesday, you kind of know the axe is about to drop on you. Well, they say, why would you do it on Monday or Tuesday? And why not on a Friday so that they can have the weekend to recover? I'll tell you why. When there are no abilities or opportunities to find jobs on the weekend, people tend to stew in their feelings, their emotions, positive and negative. But if you fire them on a Monday or Tuesday, they have 3 days to get their asses back on the line, sending out resumes, calling up people, and be able to hustle during the week so that they can find another job. This is important for them. It may be easier for you to fire them on Friday, but it's better for you to do it on Monday or Tuesday. There's a couple things that you need to do. And I'm going to give this advice from the point of view of a small to medium-sized business. So if you're somewhere between 5 to 35 employees, you're going to do something like this. Generally speaking, you have an HR person. Sometimes it's not a dedicated HR person. For us, it's our bookkeeper, who's also our HR person. Her name is Monica. So Monica has to know, first of all, that this person's being fired. Anyone that this person reports to who has a project that is tied to this person needs to be notified of this. And also you need to negotiate with them if this is the week or it can wait 1 week. So if you're about to deliver on a project, you need to check in with your creative lead and say, is it okay if we get rid of Jeremy? It's not working out. And oftentimes I think Jeremy is such an integral part to the team that the creative lead is going to say to me, nope, you cannot fire this person. You're going to ruin the project. More often than not, they're like, fired Jeremy. That person's not doing anything for me anyways. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm making the right decision. In this case, Jeremy's a deadbeat. Okay, so it's cool with you? Cool. All right, don't say anything. We got this. HR figures out, okay, so Jeremy's last day is going to be on a Tuesday, and what we need to do is pay them for all the whatever we owe them. So we have a check in hand ready to go. We also have a waiver where they need to sign that in order to get their last check. This is how it works. Now, I'm not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. I'm not an HR director. Please consult one before you do any of what it is I'm about to say. All right. So what you do is you pull Jeremy into the office. You're like, you know what, Jeremy, I need to have a meeting with you on a Monday or Tuesday, whatever, at 2 p.m. Right. I would not do it so late in the day because you'll be torturing yourself the entire day. You won't feel good. You might even have an ulcer, upset stomach, whatever. Okay. All right. So right now, what you do is you call Jeremy into your office. You don't close the door again. It's like, hey, so Jeremy, you remember how we had that conversation a couple of weeks, a couple of months ago? Well, we're at that point now of no return. It's unfortunate. I wish things would have been different, but I have to let you go. Effective today. And you don't even get into the reasons anymore. You don't tell them because you come in late, because you're not delivering, you're not giving me two videos a week, or it's subpar work. At this point, there's no reason for you to go into the reasons why you're letting them go. It's too late. Now, you might feel like you got to get something off your chest, but now you're doing this for yourself and not for the person in front of you. What you want to do is you want to get them in and out of your office as quickly as possible. So they're still kind of like, what is going on? So that they don't have to deal with this emotional part where like they're getting fired. All right. So what you're going to say at that point is like, do you understand? They're like, yes. I'm going to have you go and check in with HR. They have a check for you. I need you to sign some paperwork. And then at your convenience, I need you to clear out your desk. There's a couple other ways you can do this. You can also say if it's middle of the day and they're in the middle of the bullpen where there's like 30 other employees around them, I wouldn't do it like that. What I would do is say, okay, I want you to go check in with HR. You're going to sign some paperwork. And then at the end of the day today, you're going to come back to the office and we'll have you clear out your desk, or we'll have someone clear it out for you so you have all of your stuff. Because you don't want to send them back to their desk in front of a whole bunch of people where it's clear something bad has happened to them, only for them to freak out or to feel like all the eyes in the room know that they've gotten fired. It's embarrassing. So they go to HR. They're like, this is what I owe, or I'm owed. You sign it, sign the forms, like, yep, this is everything you owe me. And then they're sent out the door. You collect their keys. You disable their passwords. You disable their email accounts. This is critical that you have your IT person disable their account as you're talking to them and firing them. And I'll tell you why. In the past, people have made this mission critical error, and you've seen TV shows and movies about this where they fire the person, but their email is still good. And what this person does is they email all the clients and say, you know, I'd like to have a lunch meeting with you right now, or something like that. They leave, you think everything's fine, and then they snake all of your clients, or they poison the well. You need to disable their email account right away. And that's it. You just do it nice and clean. You don't get emotional. You don't sit there and enumerate all the reasons why they failed. At this point, it's just too late. Now, there's going to be this thing, and you need to resist this. They're going to ask you this question. But what did I do wrong?
Yep. You're literally answering the question I was about to ask you.
I've done this once or twice, Mo. But what did I do wrong? And you're going to want to tell them. You're going to say, because this, and that. You remember how like you told the client staff off in that meeting? You want to tell them all this stuff to just purge it. But this is where you need to take the high road. You have to take the high road. And you're going to say something like this, Jeremy, if telling you would change the outcome of this, or make the things better, or make the situation better, I would tell you. But at this point, I don't see that there's a good reason anymore. I've already told you everything in our last meeting, and things have not improved. And you'll just have to live with that. Okay? And you can say a couple other things. You can say, like, you know what, if you need me as a referral, or if you feel good enough about them, whatever. If you don't say that, obviously. And just send them out the door. And you can even say something like, thanks for your service. I appreciate your contribution to this company. You still want to be a professional.
When I hear this, Chris, it makes sense in the linear birth midlife firing. Because without that, and I guess that goes into people not running a humane company. So I appreciate that you mapped it out in those 3 phases, because I personally believe that we're accountable for the businesses we run as well, to do our due diligence and the people management part. And I think without that middle mission critical conversation, the firing piece is just sour. Right. And it does make me feel a little better because I feel like I definitely don't do it with as much grace, but there is due diligence that is had in that lifespan from hiring to letting go or firing. Not from hiring to firing. Let me just get really used to saying that. So I just wanted to highlight that the linear from beginning to end to me is what makes this all work. Otherwise, it feels like it would be really, really sour and unjustified because no one was in the know about what's going on.
Yeah, one way you can assuage yourself of the guilt is to make sure you have clear communication at the beginning and the middle. So at this point, it's not like you're just pulling the rug underneath them and just, be careful where you're stepping because it's all plastic and then pss, pss, and 2 shots go in the back of the head. Right. It's not a silent snipe kind of thing. They know they've been given opportunity to correct their actions and to start to deliver whatever it is. A lot of times people do, and I don't want to talk about this part, but sometimes people do something that's so against your core values, you have to fire them on the spot. And that's a different conversation for a different day. And you have to end that right away. And I'll tell you why. Okay. I'll tell you why. It's because if there's sexual harassment or there's some kind of racism or something that's being said, if it's within your earshot, you don't do something about it right then and there, you have now created what they call a hostile work environment. Mm-hmm. So the people who are the victims of this, of either sexual harassment or racism or something that's totally inappropriate at the office, now say, well, this behavior was condoned by management. And now you're liable to get sued. Because they're like, well, I saw Mo walk by when this statement was being said or when this action was being said, and I'm pretty sure Mo saw it and heard it. And other people in the office could be called in as witnesses and corroborate this. Now you've created a hostile work environment. I'm talking about just not delivering unexpected outcomes. Okay. All right, Mo, we have a couple of people here up on stage with us. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to them. I think in the order in which I see you listed here, is it Timalayan, or how do you say your name?
Yeah, this is Timalayan.
All right. So you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I have a question, and I also want to thank you for this opportunity, and also thank you for sharing your insight every time. So I have this question about IAM actually. How do you manage hiring interns with no experience of what you
Timalayan,
do
hold on a
with,
second here. Hold on. You have a little choppy connection. I don't know if you're walking around. It's a little hard to hear you. Ooh. Do me a favor and mute yourself and put yourself where you get 4 bars. Okay, we're gonna come right back to you. It's Mo. Did you have a hard time hearing him?
Yeah, I don't know if it was connection. Timalayan, it sounded more staticky, either a mic issue or a connectivity issue with whatever you're using as a headphone. It could also be connection, but yeah, it was very staticky and it was competing with your voice.
Yeah, so here's what I suggest that you do when we invite you to come and speak again. Get into a spot where it's nice and quiet and just use the speakerphone. Don't use any wireless earbuds or anything. There's something that's interfering with us being able to hear your voice. I'm going to move over to, is it Matthew? Matthew, do you have a question or comment for us?
Hi, can you hear me very well or not?
Yeah, you're nice and clear. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, just give me a second. Okay. Hi, by the way, I hate listening to you guys because after all, I feel that you are saying out loud my thoughts, and this wasn't a hate comment, but I'm like, Jesus Christ,
Oh, and we just lost you right after Jesus Christ. We just lost you, Matthew.
That hate word is powerful, man. It killed the
internet. All right, you're back.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
So, guys, this topic is the best thing that could happen to me today because I'm thinking of firing someone on Friday, and you just said that to do this on Monday, so this is perfect. Because I remember that you, Chris, had this conversation on the future with Tim Brown, and he said that he never fired anyone, and I was like, Jesus, I want to do this, even if someone from my team will not want to will not contribute in our company in a right way, they will just go by themselves and everything will be figured out by itself, right? But right now I'm in the situation that one of my employees did something really bad, and I think I'm gonna lose a lot of money because of that, blah blah blah. You know how it is sometimes. And you said about this emotional, you both of you said about this emotional connection with your employees or people who are working with you and everything. And I do have it too. And trust me, I'm like fighting with my soul, and I'm fighting with myself, like how to fire someone, not hurt their feelings, and like not lose someone who I don't want to like sound like a jerk when I'm like firing her. I'm with my project manager who is like helping me with that and everything. And this is like a mental struggle, a little, to be honest, for me. So, how, guys, do you think that I should fire someone and not sound like a jerk, but like still like fire them?
I get it. So first of all, Matthew, thanks for being a fan of the channel. You referenced Tim Brown, so I know you watched the content, right? So you've been researching this a little bit.
Obviously.
Okay. It can be a very emotionally taxing thing. I'm going to invite my friend Nidhi to come up here too, because she's a licensed clinical social worker. So Nidhi, if you're cool, raise your hand. I'll bring you up here to address the emotional needs of the person who has to do this. Oftentimes, employees don't realize, at least with decent humans who run a company, it is actually very difficult for them. It might be a relief for you. You might think that they're a jerk, but actually this is really difficult. Okay, so a couple of things that you need to know. One, if you don't want to be a jerk, don't be a jerk. Don't come in emotionally charged, pointing fingers, belittling people. I've found that this rarely does anything good. What I like to do is refer to something that's objective. You remember how when we hired you, there were core values that we promised we'd live to, and we always do X, Y, and Z. I don't feel like we're living up to that promise anymore. And I've done the best that I can to help bring you back on track. And this could be both of us to blame here, but all I know is it's not working out anymore, and I have to let you go. Effective today.
Okay,
See,
gotcha.
so you're not going to sit there, you're not going to be a jerk. We know what the jerk version of this looks like, where we blame people, when we say, you never did this, and we castigate them. Right?
Yeah.
And this makes people feel bad. Like, what is the point of this? And I feel this way. Bosses who do that, managers who do this, have a really small, they have an ego issue.
Big truck.
Exactly.
What you want to say is they have a big truck.
They drive a fancy sports car. So what I'm saying is, like, they're trying to prove something to themselves. I'm more of a man, or I have to be a savage. No, you have to be a human being. Exactly. And I think
I am an empathetic person. I'm an empathetic person. Like,
you sound like one.
So I'm trying to, like, I understand their point, and I understand my point, and what are the issues like we had with her, and how it will end up for our company if we, for example, like lose this client or something like that. So I'm trying to like understand, and I'm listening to you. So sorry, I just interrupted.
I know what. Let's do this before Nidhi gives you some help here, some professional help. Do you feel brave enough to just say what you might say to fire this person right now? If you were talking to them, don't use their name, obviously.
Yes, I obviously feel brave because I've been preparing this, like, this little storyline and everything in my head.
So just say it. Just say it right now. Pretend this person's in the room and you've called them into your office and you're ready to let them go. Do this in a way that's clear, but it has grace. Okay.
Let's do it. Okay. So let's say, Chris, that you are this person. Okay.
Yeah, you can address me.
You are in this project. Okay.
Yeah.
So hi, Chris. So listen. We've been talking to you about this stuff and about this project and about everything what was going on in the company for a while. I told you a while ago that there were people in our team that wanted to rid off of you, but like I told you that like I'm giving you the chance and everything. I see potential. I see and saw potential in you. And
Matthew, I gotta cut you off. The lead into this is too long.
Okay, I'm
because the person is dying there. They're like, you know what? Are you going to fire me or what? And you're just torturing the animal. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You got to go for it, and you got to get it out pretty quickly. I know it doesn't feel like this, but the more you talk, the more nervous you get, the less it becomes clear. I've had this happen in the past when I wasn't trained on how to do this, where people walked away thinking like, am I fired or not? I don't know what's going on. Too much preamble. Okay, let's try it one more time.
Okay. So listen, Chris, we've been talking in a while in our team, and I think that we'll have to let you go. This was like a very big decision in our company. Everyone was thinking about this. Project manager, sorry, were talking to me about this. Everyone in the team was talking about this, and I think that this is the right decision. I wanted you to grow, but like you didn't even think about growing.
You're just blaming right there. You're just blaming.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We're going to stop here.
Hold
Hold on. I'm going to help you. I can tell even practicing, you're super nervous right now. Obviously, because there's like 100 people in the room and they're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also that's you. So that's always like
Couple things. All right. Go ahead and put yourself on mute. Here's what I want you to do. If you have to do this today or the next couple of days, I want you to do this. You need to breathe and you need to talk slower and clear. You need to breathe, take deep breaths, talk slower and clear. Okay? That's what you need to do. I'm going to give you a tip here. If I were training you on how to do this, I would start off, oddly enough, with an emotion. I would say something like this. It pains me to have this conversation with you. I've lost sleep over this. I wish there were a different outcome. I wish we didn't have to do this, but I have to let you go. Based on our previous conversations, what I asked you to correct, I haven't seen significant progress there. So that's why. So effective today, I have to let you go. That's all. Okay. Don't team and management and you didn't do this and it's just getting too much into the reasons. Okay.
Okay. I just like I wrote down like the full conversation. I was writing down notes and everything, and like you said that I have to let them ask what they did wrong, like instead of like telling her what she did wrong by myself, right? Like she has to ask about this.
No. Okay. I'm going to clarify this and I'm going to get nitty on this. When you're ready to fire, we've already gone past the point of no return. There's no coming back here. I don't need to tell you the reasons. I don't want to tell you the reasons because at this point, it's just going to stir more emotions, more finger pointing, more defensive behavior, and it's going to maybe even create aggravation from you, and you're going to lose your temper. So when you're ready to fire someone, just say, you know what? I have to say this with a heavy heart. You know, in other circumstances, I'd love to keep you, but we can't keep you anymore. I have to let you go. You just say that. That's it. And they're going to probably say, well, why? Why? It's just, and you're going to say something like, I don't think it's going to be productive for us to talk about this. I think during our last meeting, I already told you nothing or not enough has changed. So it's for those reasons. You just reference the old conversation. There's no point at this. Okay. I have made this mistake before against advisement. I did tell the person why, and they just argued with me.
Okay.
And I was thinking, you know what? I wanted this to be so nice. I wanted to be able to say nice things about you, but they dig in and you're like, you know what? We are done.
Exactly. Okay.
So don't go
down
that path.
I know what you feel. I know how it is. So because like you literally just said about the temper and losing the temper and everything, and I know that like I could lose my temper when she could.
I could see that. I could see that. Yeah. Because there's a reason why you're firing them in the first place. Because they're not doing what they're supposed to do. You feel like you're let down. And at this point, you're going to take the high road. Whose speaker is that? Thank you.
That was Mo.
Somebody's okay. Anyways, right? So I want you to do your best at practicing the late night FM DJ voices referred to by Chris Voss. Slow, deep, methodical, intentional. That's it. All right, Nitty, how can you help someone who's in this position like Matthew is, or he's struggling with a lot of conflicting emotions and feelings, you could tell? Can you give us some words of wisdom here? Mo, it is your mic, dude.
Sure, I'm happy to, Chris, and thanks for inviting me up. It's hard, and I actually have a husband who's in HR, so this is like literally what he does. And at one point, he had to fire 10 to 15 people a day So you can imagine how taxing that is. So a couple of tips, right? One is that you have to be able to push past the discomfort, because as you said, Chris, if you're at the stage where you're looking to get rid of somebody and fire them, they have already committed such egregious errors that have been unable to get past, that you've built up the case against them. So one thing is to remind yourself of that. I remember my husband used to kind of go through the list, and he would talk to me a little bit beforehand or run it through his own head of, well, they were late to work every day and they didn't show up and do their job when they were there. And then when I did have conversations with them, they were very snappy or, just difficult to work with. So first off, just reminding yourself why you're doing this is helpful. The second piece